Hey guys, this is LoveTalk Lagos. We're a group of friends that whenever we meet, we end up talking about love and relationships. So we're like, what the heck? Let's start a podcast. This series of differences, we've touched on age differences in relationships. We've talked about tribal differences in relationships. And most recently, we spoke about the socio-economic statuses in relationships and how that would affect the dynamic. Right now, we're stepping into a bit more personal and controversial waters. We're going to talk about the differences in relationships. And yeah, I think everyone is pumped for that. But first, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Peter. I'm a media consultant.
Okuns entertainer.
Ife, TV personality.
And Ifeoma, entrepreneur and psychologist.
What's here? She wants to finish us.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Okay. So, I mean, we're in a very religious country, in
Yes.
quotes, very. I don't know how many churches we have in just Lagos alone. Several. So, I mean,
Also a mosque. So I don't know why every time people are talking about, Nigeria is a religious country, everyone just automatically assumes that, they're talking about Christianity. There are a lot of mosques in this country.
Registered Nigeria as an Islamic country in '93.
You see?
People don't know that.
But do you know that there's church in every corner of the street? I mean, Redeem had that thing they wanted to do where they were like.
Just like Ghana.
And mosques are not like that, so I can't. It would take me a minute to find
Glory Hole Church.
glory hole.
Yeah.
That sounds like a vagina.
okay. Let's, as we're talking about religion, let us keep things pure.
Exactly.
Right. So, the first question that I would pose to the ladies, starting from you, Ife, you're a Christian, right?
Yes,
You're a
I am.
Protestant. So, would you marry a non-Christian?
I don't know if I'm going to marriage. Would you even date?
Would you date a non-Christian, or would you date outside your own sphere of Christianity?
So for me, right, I'm going to be talking from the biblical side of things now, just because I'm a Christian. Yeah, as in,
Hallelujah.
I don't know the verse, but it was like, be not unequally yoked with unbelievers. And because of that, it's very difficult for me to date someone that is not Christian. Now, the only thing I would say is, and it's even so, thinking about it now, it's even so terrible that there's even some Christians that I can't even date. Like, if you went to like Celestial Church of Christ, I would assume they are Christians, but
She said she would assume they are Christians, but she's not sure.
but that's how, unfortunately, that's how it is. And it's just because there's so many doctrines. Now, unfortunately, again, or I don't know how to say, I have dated guys that are not Christian, And when I mean they're not Christian, they were Muslims, but there's some guys that are like atheist or like maybe agnostic. Like, what is that though?
You believe it?
We believe in God, but you don't want to categorize yourself.
Okay, so yeah, I've dated people like that, and for me, the honest truth is, there's a reason why they're like that, and for me, they're not necessarily my cup of tea, just because sometimes when we even go through trials and tribulations, if it was a guy that was like spirit-filled, God-fearing, he'll be able to go into prayer and now say, oh God, what are you trying to tell me here? And do you understand? And maybe realize that this is either the relationship that he should maintain. But if he's agnostic, he's like, oh, whatever, she's just a stupid girl. And don't pray about it. And that's how maybe we'll allow his wife to now go, just because he did not spend time to actually go to God in prayer to be like, God, what are you trying to teach me here? So that's why for now, even though I've dated people that are not like Christians in the past, I don't think I'll do it again, just because
What about a Christian? What about a Christian who isn't active though? Like, there's a lot of, because I find even Christian religion is a bit sexist, where like women are a lot more fire about that. Men are very like take the back seat. We'll go because my wife said so, and they'll say they'll fast, but then they'll eat first and not care so much. You know, like they don't take it too seriously. There are men who take it seriously, yes, but I'm saying, would you date somebody like that? Someone who's passive?
I think for me, if he's going to be able to go to church with me, if we want to pray, he has to pray too, or like he's willing to pray as well. I believe that once you're a Christian, and even if your fire goes down, just like sometimes, even for me too, my fire would go down. Because you're a Christian, you can always bring it back up. But if you're not even in the zones at all, do you understand? That point, there's no... it's way more difficult. Even though I do also know women that have converted their husbands from whatever religion or whatever belief and faith that I did have. But I'm also of the opinion that you shouldn't be wanting to change anyone. Why don't you just find someone that is in the same path as you, and it just makes everything a whole lot easier. So that's my
What if you really fall in love with somebody who is, okay, you're serious with your religion, they're serious with their own religion, but you guys, you just get along. Everything just clicks. It's just
so smooth.
easy, it's smooth. And you know that this person is a good person and vice versa. But the only problem is you guys differ on like solid, any like Christian or ex-Christian will know that there are some solid doctrines that you don't shake, right?
Yeah.
And then you guys are on the other side of the fence of that.
But everything else runs.
But everything else runs perfectly. How would you guys deal with that kind of situation?
The funny thing is, recently I was listening to a clubhouse room, and this was exactly the topic. So what it was a girl that was very spirit-filled. She used to pray a lot. She was dating a guy that she wasn't aware that he was Muslim, but she said he was amazing. Like, when you mean amazing, that he's the best guy she's ever dated. So when she found out he was Muslim, she got into the position of oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. She freaked out again because one of her reasons she said was, oh, her mom would never even allow her to date someone that was non-Christian. Do you understand? She brought her parents into it, and she was not like, it's been like 2 or 3 years later, and she honestly can say that guy was the best guy that she's ever dated, and that in retrospect, she would never have broken up with him because of his religion. So my question to her, because I actually did ask her a question, even though she felt bad, was like, in that situation as well, did you pray about it? Because even in the Bible, and this is why, even though I say, oh, it's good, if that happened to me, I would actually not break up with the guy. Because guess what? If we even go back to the Bible, there's a guy that was married to a prostitute, like, and it's in the Bible. So hello, like, do you understand? So that again for me is also. So I think this thing is actually two-sided, and I also am of the belief that you should not break up with someone just purely because of religion.
Well, you just said before that you wouldn't even go into a relationship
That's for me, being the sense that I would, as much as possible from the get-go, like, lay the foundation, let it be on a solid foundation. But if in that situation, like I just spoke to you about, where you didn't know, but the guy is so amazing, I won't break up with him just because he's not Christian.
Yeah, but if you said solid foundation, but if you can have a solid foundation with somebody who's not in the same religion as you, why would that be something you set up from the beginning? Because I find you see, my agnostic, let me just start off by that, because I know everything I'm going to say now, religious people might not like it, but I find religion very limiting in that sense. I think relationship with God is beautiful, but without us knowing, I think maybe just human nature, we find a way to just pollute that shit too much, right? So it becomes a uniform. And the thing about uniforms is that it's not a concrete thing to rely on. It doesn't really speak well of the person's identity just because I wear a certain thing, you know? So would I ever date somebody who is outside of my religion? I don't have a religion, but would I date somebody who is religious? If the person is truly religious, embodies religion, I would not be able to date the person just because they won't want to date me, to be honest. But I think I would have an issue with that. Religion usually comes people who are religious, most people usually come with very close-minded tendencies, very myopic way of thinking, and are quite precious about their faith anyway. So that would never go along with me. But I can't imagine dating a Christian who has a very liberal view, meaning that they made it a lot more personal, they can dictate what they want, and stuff like that. So most of the time when people hear, especially in Lagos, when people hear agnostics or atheists, they think antichrist. So a lot of people who don't believe in God or don't do church are not necessarily antichrist. If anything, they respect your faith and they would encourage your faith because they see that helps you, right? The only difference is that they are not going to necessarily engage in the way that you do. So I would say that there's nothing wrong with dating people from different religions, if they have the right attitude towards each other's faith, one. But two, if you are a person that holds certain beliefs strongly, and you're not the kind of person that wavers too much, you might see that as a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing in relationships. There's been statistics that show that men and women who are very firm on this is how I want things to go are very bad partners, because then you don't give space for growth or change or the other person, really.
And it has nothing to even do with religion. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think if you have those things, if you're that kind of person and then you not add religion to it, you might as well go for somebody who's of the same religion.
So based on what you said, I want to rephrase. So maybe religion is not the word, because I do agree with you. I'm not religious in the sense that there are a lot of people that see religion as the do-all and be-all. I'm not that type of person. I also am I'm of the opinion that it's about your relationship with God, which is what I value more than necessarily whether you're Christian or Muslim, or it's like, what's your interpersonal relationship with God? Now, what I would say though is that in keeping the same faith, if your relationship with the God is not in a traditional way, I'm sorry, we're also not doing that. Because that's now like babalawos and mamalawos. Exactly, and that's completely different and completely outside what it is. But if it is that, oh yes, you know God, you love God, but for you it's a personal relationship and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with church or on quote and unquote or no church, then that's a whole nother story. But I do also see that when the person is like a Muslim, right? When it's not just like the person is agnostic or atheist, right? When the person is a Muslim and when the person is a Christian, I think there's now more differences in the sense that even the traditions that they have to do, like Ramadan and all of that, and the Lent period, first of all, is at 2 different times. And then second of all, they have this doctrine and way of life that is they're also completely different. So I think that is even another factor that can come into play in that regard.
Okay, so I'll bring Okuns into this shortly. But now, when it comes to a lot of your political ideologies stem from your religious or non-religious beliefs, right? So you would find someone that takes their religion seriously, leaning most of the time more to conservatism in terms of way of life. So in terms of like views on homosexuality, abortion, all these things, right? You would find that person who takes the Christianity seriously will be on one side of the fence, and then an agnostic or an atheist would be on the other side of the fence. So it goes beyond. You rightfully mentioned things of like Ramadan versus Lent and stuff like that. It goes beyond religious practices, because now it's not a way of life. When they're now discussing politics or having daily conversations, one person is more of this opinion. Long story short, polarized opinions on day-to-day stuff because the root is religion or non-religion. So in that situation, it's not, okay, just pray with me. It's like, besides praying with me, your fundamental opinions and your fundamental values might now be different from mine. Now, can such a relationship be successful? What do you think, Okuns?
Well, it depends on it depends on the families, really. It could work. I mean, if they are liberal.
But now look at this situation.
My sister is married to a Muslim. They only did a traditional wedding.
They didn't do a white wedding.
No, She's married to a Muslim.
So Muslims don't do what?
No, they do nikai, which is their Muslim. Northern.
So, what wedding is for Christianity. But yeah, so they just married, they did court and they did traditional. And that was it.
So that
And
there's
they are
no
living together
dispute now. So like, I'm sure they did that. So there's no dispute of, oh, let's do white wedding or let's do nikai. Okay, no, we only do traditional, which everybody does anyway, regardless of whether you're Christian or Muslim.
So to work, it's like you said, it's only a conservative that will say no, I can't marry somebody because it's a different religion from me.
I think.
But also that because it's the same God both of you are worshiping. Abi? So unless you say okay, the person is an atheist. If the person is an atheist and it's not affecting your life negatively, then what is your business as to whether you marry an atheist or not?
You see, the truth of the matter is that.
Conversion.
Yeah.
Person can eventually convert, but yeah.
Yeah, but one of the reasons why a lot of people take it a bit more seriously is that let's not forget, right? The way you're also trained and your upbringing is also affected by your religion. Let's be honest. So, based on that, but I do agree with you where some people, because their parents were maybe not religious, but were like, they had a good relationship with God and they brought them in the right way, whether you're Christian or you're Muslim, that solid foundation of, oh, thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not steal or thou shalt not lie, those are like things that both the Muslim father or the Christian mother would still inculcate in their child, which are the very foundational morals and belief system. Do you understand? And it is universal, I want to say, to all religions, I want to believe. But once you have that foundation, it doesn't now matter. The only thing that we find is that we hear all these doctrines and we like to pit each other, like we like to take sides when it comes to religion just because, oh, they are not Christians or they're not Muslims, and we see that as a differentiating factor. But there are so many other things that you should actually consider before religion then becomes an issue. I think that's what it is, really.
Yeah, so I think commonality is important in relationships. I used to be of the opinion that, because I can be really liberal and open-minded, and I love people, so there's not that many people that I can't really fuck with. So I used to think, oh, you can just say anybody, but that's not true. I think there are some things, that thing they used to say, like, I think I've had this conversation with Peter, where we say opposite attracts. Yeah, it's good to be opposite, but you need to have commonalities, and those commonalities have to have proper value in your life. So everybody has things that are important to them, and I know a lot of people who are Christians, but I beg, that thing is just title. They really don't care that much. It doesn't really run their lives. So I would say for that kind of couple, religion is not an important value that must be common for them. For some people, it's money, like how you view money or how you handle money. Or for some people, it's family. Some people, it's children, or it's your view on work or politics, for example. But I think everybody has things that are very dear to them. You and your partner should have a lot of that in common, if not all. I mean, all is hard, but at least have a few things that are important that you share in common. So starting off with that, in regards to religion, I think religion is also a very personality thing. And I like that he mentioned liberal. Some people just really know how to do their own thing. So yes, I might not be able to pray with you as a partner, but I can still be a hell of a damn more supportive than you and your pastor and your prayer coordinators. Do you get what I mean? Like, I can be there all the steps of the way. And if that's enough for you, then I don't see any problem with that. Most of the time, though, religion, and maybe some people who are not religious, the battle comes with the intellectual conversations. And I like that you mentioned like politics, homosexuality, how you raise your children. That's another big one, because I can't imagine having the most liberal Christian husband and he has a problem with homosexuality, for example. Not that I'm hoping my children will be homosexuals, because I know that life is hard, but I don't have a problem with them existing and functioning in the world. I just wouldn't wish it for people, because I know the world that we live in, right? But let's say I do have kids that are like that. I'm expecting a lot of love and support from my partner towards that child. Supporting them all through. Doesn't mean that I accept it, because even me myself, I'm not gay, so it's not as if I can tell the child I understand you perfectly. No, I don't. But I would want to be able to love that child just as much as I would love a straight child. Now, if that husband of mine cannot do it, we have a serious problem. Where we send our kids to school, what we do for Christmas, those things are very important. But I think, like Okun's sister, most couples would know even before marriage if they can start to find their common grounds. So a lot of people are different, but if they can walk in that path of commonality, they will have a very successful marriage, even if they are both conservatives, if they always just function on commonality. So yeah, so me, I'm really deep about my white wedding, and I'm also very deep about whatever the Muslim name is. I don't know. I'm also very deep about that one, Nikai. But we're not even gonna do that because we don't want wahala. Let's just do the one that we both are comfortable with. If they always have that, I can see it working.
So I like that you mentioned like when you bring a child into it, because a lot of the times you get that people who actually love each other and are genuine with each other can find some sort of, okay, we're Christians of different denomination, but there's Psalms, there's Proverbs. These are books that are not so different. We can do those things together, right? This is the common ground.
Yeah.
But when you have a child right now, and then, okay, some religions, not necessarily Christian, now don't circumcise their boys. So you're a Christian and you're like, we must circumcise this child. And then she or he is now like, no, I don't want my child circumcised. I'm not of your faith. But that is a serious marker to you for the male child. At that point, there is no middle ground, because either the child is circumcised or the child is not circumcised.
There's still a middle ground.
So what would the middle ground be?
Which is half circumcision.
No, the middle ground for me would be to have that conversation away from religion, right? Because religion is what wants to take preference. But there's other ways to explain things to me as a non-Christian why that's important. So some Christians hold things dearly, but it's not actually a Christian value. It's a world value. Like, it just fucking makes sense, right? So if you appeal something to me and say that it's because God said so, your Bible that you're reading said so, that's cool, but it's not gonna work. But if you start to bring other things, if you tell me that this child needs that for, like, maybe survival or like health reasons or whatever, if there's other values to it, we will function on that common ground.
Yeah, but what could be the other value for circumcision?
So
and make the case?
circumcision in this part of the world actually is very valuable. Wow. In terms of so the way someone had explained, a midwife had explained to me, there's history with our blood type, right? Like, we're the only ones in sub-Saharan Africa that have AS, and there's certain things about our environment and all of that. And then people who don't circumcise are more susceptible to STIs and STDs and all of that.
It's like that everywhere in the world.
Exactly. So if you come to me on that regard, that, okay, this is the reason why, of course we would do it, even though I would have not cared that much. And then you can also get your religious desires fulfilled. Great. Win-win. Still common ground. But if there's no other reason, that's the issue with also involving yourself in people who are not in the same religious circle as you, is that if there's no other reason for us to do this thing other than your own religious whatever, and I'm not feeling very compromised that day, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Things are going to happen. My niece, for example, when she was born, don't know what that is, I think it's a Muslim thing. They shaved all her hair.
Okay.
My sister is still Christian, and she allowed it. So yeah,
that's
still.
hair, but is your brother, because I noticed your sister has a son, is he circumcised?
No, this is it's a different sister that has a son, but now on both are Catholic, so.
Oh, no, but the one that is married to a Muslim, do they have a son?
No.
Oh, they only have a daughter.
So Muslims don't circumcise?
No.
Well, I don't know. It depends, It's not that they
It's
don't.
not just religion, it's culture. A lot of the times, the Yoruba Muslims circumcise. Some of them.
Yeah.
Yoruba Muslims, so maybe. I mean,
But the northerners don't circumcise.
regardless, I think every guy should circumcise. It's not very advisable to grow up without circumcising. But
But
yeah,
can you even do circumcision like when you're older?
It's dangerous. You can bleed to
yes,
death.
but you can. Yes, you can do it. You can do it. Not be just to do surgery.
So now, if we go to, let's go to like fundamentalists, right? Because a lot of fundamentalists will be like, okay, outside, everyone else is an infidel, basically. So even if two of you come to some sort of common ground, okay, you now dated, now time for the main stuff, like the marriage stuff, and you introduce your families, and one side of your family is looking at the person you want to marry as an outsider, an infidel, and that is never really going to change. There's going to be tolerance, but the more they get comfortable around you, or the more they have you around, the more their inner feelings are going to show. So would you say that it's just better to prevent or to avoid that situation because to become messy eventually? Or do you feel couples can still endure that external extended family aspect?
It's a personality thing. So I, for one, don't value anybody's opinion that highly to make a decision like who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I don't value anybody, not my mother, father, siblings. It's be nice, but I'm not going to make a decision on who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with based on how they feel, based on how anybody feels. And that's just me in general. Especially when your reasons are baseless and are based on prejudice, hate, closed-mindedness. I could give a shit what you think. So that's just me. But if you're a person that cares about your family, people who even care about their families will not even date the person already. From the inception, they're like, my mom and my daddy are not going to like so they already have let it go. But I'm not like that. You see, the thing is, I strongly believe, and the reason why I got so confident in this ideology is that I strongly believe that the world adjusts. At first, everybody's like, oh my God, why would you do that? With time, because prejudice and bias are on baseless things. They change a lot. Except the man is really vile and it's on character. If it's not on character, those biases change. You will see a white man until he spends weekends in your house and you stop seeing a white man. You start seeing his first name. You start seeing John. And they start seeing that John is funny. And John cares about your family. And John cooks. Oh, and John would have liked the show. And John would have da-da-da-da-da. And it starts becoming more than a white person and a human being. So the world will adjust to that infidel. They will even start saying things like, for an infidel, I'm really surprised, Or this person, I didn't even think that this person would do this and this person would do that. In fact, some Muslims will not even do this thing that he's doing. Or some Christians will not do that thing that they're doing. So, for me, choose the right person. If the character is really strong, all those other biases, after a while, they fade off.
I agree. The only thing is that unfortunately, when it comes to marriage, especially in relationship, this may not be the case. But when it comes to marriage, because it is assumed that we have to go and seek the hands of the parents. So that's why a lot of times, especially the girl, she feels that she also has to make sure that the guy she's with is someone that her parents will approve of, whether they're Muslims or Christians or whatever that is. But that's always where the issue now comes. I'm sure if it was a case of where the both of them are the only ones in the relationship that have to determine, that may be a totally different situation. But once they are now having to formalize it and now going to the parents, that's
you
where
have to be a preacher of war to do this, right? You have to also come to terms with the fact that this person might exclude you from your family. So my family is not they're not unreasonable. They are traditional, but they are not unreasonable, right? So usually at first, with everything, even my decisions on what I want to study or where I want to live, there is a backlash, but after a while, they come around. There's some families that I know would never come around, right? There's some families that are hell-bent. So you have to then decide what's important to you as a person. Is any kind of love worth being segregated from your family? Because that might happen. If you think that, why would I give up this beautiful love to my own family over a bunch of people who don't want love to even win, then sure. But if your family and the family support is everything to you and you can't imagine them, it's really tailored to each individual, really.
I agree so much. But it's really sad that a lot of relationships, religion has been one of the biggest ones. I feel like when it comes to even tribal, age, socioeconomic, people do passes, but immediately religion will be like number one and then tribal. Yeah. But it's really, really bad.
And I think that's a waste. I think we judge human beings so much. So much. And religion to me shouldn't be that much of a communal thing, because even a Christian girl and a Christian man in a relationship don't have the same relationship with God, and they're like together. Do you get what I mean? One person will probably be more religious than the other person. And if you think about a relationship in total, the times that religion actually has a strong hold on that relationship, it's not that many.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, it's just two of you. Not you can pray and it can make you feel nice. But last, it's the two of you doing life together, making decisions on a day to day. That effect of what church has to say and not say it's not that much in a relationship. That I feel like it's so sad and it's a waste. People could have amazing, happy relationships with each other without being from the same religion. Because they're just planning sheepishly.
So, I mean, for any Christian, right, because of how, religion is like, especially religion, provides some sort of structure to how you should live your life, right? It's a way of life. So, they have advice and pointers for couples, like coming from a place of divine wisdom, right? So, anybody who has that, let's say, blueprint, right, and believes in that blueprint would want to apply it because this is wisdom. This is divine wisdom, right? There is a reward for living in this kind of way, with my wife, with my family, right? So, unless they don't really believe, but if they do believe, they would want to apply that divine wisdom to their marriage. Do you get what I mean? Even if the other person may not entirely, they'll just say, okay, you don't understand or you don't get it. But either way, if one person is religious and the other person isn't, I don't think it's so easy that the love they have for each other and their personal banter would just override that difference. Because the person can be like, okay, we need to pray every morning and every night at this time together. You see the importance. The other person really doesn't. So the times where you are tired, there's no the other person can't really, is not going to push you because more often than not, because they're not really into it. And you may prefer someone who would, when you're, sleepy and tired, because they are that fiery about it, they will be like, okay, well, I've not done this prayer that I was supposed to do. Do you get what I mean?
That's a general assumption about non-religious people. So I've dated somebody where I was very religious then, and he was a proper atheist. And I don't know anyone else who pushed me for my faith more than he did in that time of frame that I was in. So when people love you, I think it's only religious people that are not capable of doing this thing, honestly. But when people love you, they love you with your differences. We don't, most religious or non-religious people don't carry wala on their head like that. And he was very specific about that, because I remember I used to be worried about him not being religious and losing my faith and all of that. And he saw that this thing was dear to me, so it became dear to him. And not that he was convinced enough about the doctrines, but he was convinced enough about my faith. So he supported me. He woke me up to pray. He reminded me about Bible studies. He asked me every time when I was back what I learned. If there's some things that he didn't agree with, we'll argue and have a good time about that. The things that he agreed on. He was quite supportive. It is very possible. The problem here, no offense, is the religious people, because they would not be able to support that kind of person in that same way as well. So if I say to you that on Sunday morning, on Christmas Day, I want to go hang out with my friends, you wouldn't say, oh, that's so kind of you. Go, I would make you breakfast, make you lunch or dinner when you come back. Rather, you'll be the ones that will say, now, why can't you come to church? Everyone's husband is going to be there. You have to come to church with me. So the problem actually comes from your end. But most people that are not religious would support you with everything. Your religion, your hobby, your children, your faith, your career, everything.
I agree. Yeah.
Are you sure that's not an assumption as well?
It's not an assumption. It's my reality. I just give you my own reality, not anybody else's. I didn't give a hypothetical approach, and he was proper atheist. Now I don't know if I'll be able to do the same for religious people, me or Ifeoma. I don't know if I'll be that understanding and be pushing people for their religion. I probably will sleep off if you sleep off me, but it is not a general thing. If a man loves you, a woman loves you, really loves you, and that's just their nature, they would chase you to. In fact, they'll drop you off and pick you up. If you want to sit, make them sit there, they will sit there as well. Because most atheists and agnostic people are not anti-Christ.
Yeah,
The only time it starts to get into a problem is if the person is against your religion. Like, I am against everything Jesus stands for. I'm against the teaching. I'm against. And then we're getting somewhere. But for most other people, we don't really care about that.
I think so, and I think that's the most important point you mentioned. A lot of people just think, oh, agnostic people and atheists, they are not, they are anti-Christ, but in reality, they are not anti-Christ. It's just that they don't like that burden. Like, it's almost like a ritual with Christians, especially, where, oh, you have to pray, you have to fast, you have to. It's like all these rules and regulations. They're like, I beg, I can't even shower.
And again, do what works for you. If you really need that religious, if you really need that religious support, you want someone that you can pray with, then do what you got to do and find the right person for you, for sure.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Fair enough. So if you're in this situation and you're confused about what to do, there's a lot of things we've mentioned that could guide and help you. At the end of the day, it's just respect for each other. Love, respect for each other, I feel a lot of the times would help when it comes to especially like religious differences. But yeah, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week in our next episode. Goodbye.